So to use your discussion boards, you'll want to find this discussions link in the navigation menu. Do keep in mind that this can be renamed by the instructor, so I've seen it called anything from homework to group discussions to, use your imagination as to what it might be called. But in this case, I've clicked on discussions, and it does bring me to the categories in the discussion board. It's a typical threaded style discussion, meaning, there'll be a top category, and then the responses will go off of that. So here I've made what I called the student lounge. You'll see these a lot. It'll be a general area for consulting with classmates or asking general questions about the class. It also might be called water cooler or general questions. And it's not an item that's always present, but it is a common one you'll see. And then an even more common one would be weekly discussion. So the class may be organized to do the bulk of your homework or assignments inside of the discussion board, or it may just be an additional item that's added. So I'll click on weekly discussion here, and I've just made up a sort of example week 1 through week 3 example here. But so let's just talk a little bit about how you might actually use the discussion board. In this case, I've already been into week 3, so you can see that's not in bold. Week 1 and week 2 are marked as unread. It also gives you under unread posts the number of responses. So in this case, obviously there's only, there are no responses, so it's marked as 1 unread, and we can see that as bolded here. But if I were to go into week 3, I can see I've answered myself here, but you want to be careful about this as you answer, because the top posting will always be the question. So to respond to that, you would click reply. Now if you go in and view my response, as you would see by, probably from other students, you can also reply to the response. So keep in mind as you answer, when you come in, you always want to use the topmost reply, unless it is your intention to simply reply just to the response, which instructors will commonly say for discussion board weeks. So week 1, I would like you to answer the question, and I would also like you to go in and reply a minimum of 2 times to your classmates' responses. So just to get oriented and make sure you're familiar with where you're replying. To answer, original answer, you're going to want to make sure you're at the topmost item to reply. To see other students' answers and reply to them, that will be below, and you can see their response and then reply from there. And I'm going to move very quickly back to the main discussions view just to address another common question. If you go in to your weekly responses area and you're not seeing any responses, another important thing to keep in mind is this list view versus tree view. So if I move into tree view in the upper right corner there, I can see, okay, here's week 3 and here's responses. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but if you have 20 students in the class and there's 20 replies, it's obviously going to be a very big difference to be able to see those replies right here, who has responded. Perhaps you've been asked to respond to a certain person's reply, versus being in the list view, which simply lists the current threads. It doesn't give you any responses, and in fact, viewing this, many people might get the impression that there are no responses. We've also had cases where people couldn't locate their responses. So just keep that list view and tree view distinction clear in your mind. And it's probably better to have it by default on tree view, which allows you to expand. It'll put this little plus sign here, basically, that you can expand to see the responses. So there are other criteria I'm not going to go into. I think it's beyond the scope, but collapse all, expand all, search is definitely one that is the new and improved feature in the new Blackboard to let you search for specific content within the threads.